half-assed Daily Decembear. And my guest today is Ren Galvan. He's an artist and graduate student in the Boston area, and I'll let you tell us about your artwork, I guess.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me, Tommy. And yes, I'm an artist. I am right now working on my Master's of Fine Arts at the Rhode Island School of Design. I live in Boston, but I commute down to Providence about 4 or 5 days a week for school, which is a little tedious. I do a lot of work on race and gender and class, and my department is jewelry and metals, though my work has sort of expanded into different arenas and disciplines. So I've done relational aesthetics, I've done performance and video, I've been getting into painting, which I never thought I would, sculpture, textiles, a lot of photography. Images are quite important to my work, actually.
So, where are you in the graduate student process?
I am right in the middle of thesis mode. So with the MFA program at RISD, it's a 2-year program. I finished the first year in May and started my second year in September, and have just wrapped up final crits on Wednesday when I did a presentation on 4 pieces that I've been working on and trying to figure out how to make them work, as well as a blog for Duke University that is going to be a large portion of what my thesis work will be moving into the spring term.
Say that again, you're fading out.
I'm sorry. So I ended up showing a blog during my final crit, and it's part of work that I'm doing for Duke University. I got a commission with them, and through the month of December, I'm curating, editing, publishing information on the Department of Latino Studies in the Global South's blog. And it's a daily update that's on a 1-day delay, so I have enough time to put everything together. And that's going to be part of my thesis project.
Well, do you mind if I put the link to that in the description for this show?
No, go for it.
Okay. You have a couple of pieces of artwork you wanted to show?
Yeah, there are a couple of things. I mean, it's some of the work that I started out doing was really hard for the faculty at RISD to understand. I didn't know at the time when I had started school that they were not going to be well versed in queer anything. So one of the pieces I was making was bottle caps from bottles of poppers. So I took the bottle cap, cast it out into different materials. I don't know if you can sort of see it. This one is in sterling silver, but I did a series where I cast out the cap into different materials, like I made a scented candle, I made a chocolate truffle with a marzipan center, I made a grease pencil, I made a lip balm with 24 karat gold embedded in it. I was kind of doing a bunch of different things to really get to what other expressions can be realized through this object, and how do we know what these things are about, and what do we value in them? You know, at the end of the day, it's a bottle of poppers, but for someone it represented other experiences, and what are the sensorial things that are activated with this cap, and how can you make that accessible to an audience that may not know what that substance is or how it's used by gay men, and formerly straight people too, from what I remember in my research.
Okay. Well, now I first learned about.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was gonna go into the pin series, but if you had something.
Oh yes. Well, I was going to get to that, but go ahead.
Yeah, and so another thing that I've been working on, which is probably relevant to any of the folks on here that are familiar with Growlr, is in the spring of this past year, I have a blog on Growlr, and I had posted an image of myself with a pin that I wear. The pin was from a series that I had done just before I started graduate school, where I looked at Victorian lingerie pins and wanted to see what those would look like if you made them for men. So I used the Growlr silhouette of the logo as the form and impressed underwear material onto metal and put a little pin back on it, and then photographed them as such. And those images are on my website.
Okay, so that's the texture of the pin is underwear fabric?
Yep.
Okay.
And so I had posted this image. One of the mistakes in that process was I had printed the material in the wrong direction, and so I wear the pin of the mistake, the test run, as a reminder to myself that, hey, you know what, double check before you invest into doing something. And so I wear this pin, and occasionally it makes an appearance on my blog, and it's the Growlr kind of logo with this underwear material printed on it. And someone had asked me, that's a really cool pin, where can I get one, where did you buy it? And obviously I hadn't purchased it, I made it, and so I said, well, in fact, I made this. And they're like, well, can you make me one? And that actually wasn't very interesting to me. I'm like, it's just a pin. To you, to me, this actually means something. It represents this time that I put into a project and a mistake that I'd made, and a reminder to not make that mistake again. So I was thinking about, well, I really would like to engage with people with my work, and to just make a piece of jewelry that someone wanted wasn't interesting to me. So I had to sort of think about, well, how can I make this an interesting project? So rather than just sell the pin to someone as a commission piece, I ended up making an edition of the pin in 50 at this time. And instead of being able to purchase it, it was available through exchange. So I would send a pin out to a prospective owner, and that owner would receive the pin, and then in order to pay me for it, they would send me revealing images of themselves with the pin and a short explanation of it. And they decide what's revealing and how many images to send and whatever their explanation is. And I'm about to close the series, actually. It opened up in March, and I want to close it out before the end of March of this coming year, so it's been open for a full year. And essentially, you have the owner has the choice of whether or not they want to submit something or not submit something, and that ends up being the work here. So it's really about the relationship that I can establish with someone and how they realize value that gets expressed in that exchange. You know, my effort and energy was put into making this thing. It has value inherent as a material because there's gold and silver and bronze in it. But what gets revealed isn't just the images, it's also everything that's part of that exchange. It also really challenges the way we think of economy. I mean, I could sell that pin for $100 if I really, really wanted to.
It's a beautiful pin.
For the most part, I just gave them out completely free of cost. I actually footed the bill for most of the shipping, although at some point I had to stop and ask people to at least pay for the shipping. But it went out all over the world. It went to Australia, it went to Denmark, it went to France, it went to Guatemala, Canada, and all over the United States.
So what has the response been so far? I know that I received one and I haven't sent you anything back.
It's actually been very, very humbling for me to get the responses. And, you know, as a jeweler, as an artist, I'm so familiar in working with materials that my hands have touched and are very familiar with. As a jeweler, precious materials are nothing new. I've worked in gold, I've worked in silver, I've worked with precious stones, and many different techniques. To get people's images and their explanations represented a material to me that was far more precious than anything I've ever worked with. And also having the responsibility of knowing who these people are, and in some cases having to respect their anonymity, only heightened what that preciousness meant to me.
Very good. So that's how I met you, actually, is I was following your Growlr blog, and about the time you had the pin, and so that's really, I think, probably the first time I contacted you.
Oh, so that was like in March.
Yes. And I changed phones in March, so if I had, you know, message history with you before that, I've lost it. So
I changed phones too, and so I have and I have to say I'm really like not a technophobe. I'm just technically clueless, as my Growlr profile says. I'm not very familiar with a lot of the different apps and what have you. And at some point, I guess I could have set my phone to keep all the Growlr information on the SIM card, and then when I switched phones, all of that stuff would have carried over. I don't understand it. My friend Maddie was telling me this. So now I have my old phone that I don't use anymore, but that I'm holding on to because I have like a lot of conversations regarding that piece, revealing encounter.
Okay.
Don't want to lose. Wow. And I've downloaded all the images that have been submitted to me so far. So I just want to touch base with people, let them know I'm about to close the series. I'm going to be posting it to my website, and it'll have to be password access. So I'll be posting the password on Growlr so that anyone will have access to this information. And that was
So
part
how
of.
would people?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that was part of the explanation for revealing. Like, some people
Right.
showed faces and some people did not, and some people showed me body parts and some people did not. And the whole sort of crux of it is that it has to come back to where it started. So I do really want to make sure that everyone who was participating realizes that they were part of a larger exchange that was going on. And I know some people have left Growlr since this project started, and that's unfortunate, and I'll reach out to them individually. I do know some people have decided not to submit images, and I respect that. And there's no strong arming into having anyone submit something or not submit something.
I am planning to. I am planning to. It's just what I have in mind I can't do by myself.
So interesting.
Yes. Well, you said you wanted something revealing, and I have something interesting, I think, but it's not something I can do by myself.
That is revealing. You've
Yes.
already given me enough there. That's really fascinating.
Right, right. Yeah, well, I may tell you offline later. So how can people find you and your work right now?
Well, I think we were having a conversation just before we went online. One of the things that is probably not so unique to me, but kind of interesting, is that I'm not very connected with social media, and that's been a conscious choice. And especially as I think about my art and my practice as an artist, I want it to be difficult to find me. I want people to really have to want to find me. And so you can't find my website through a Google search. You won't find me on Facebook or Twitter or on Instagram. Because I really do value those moments where I can engage with an audience, with an individual, and I try to, and have been trying to improve that whenever I have the opportunity to chat with people in Growlr or to meet. I've actually met a lot of my followers, and by a lot I mean probably just over a dozen at this point. And it's just an amazing experience to know that even though we've initiated these contacts online, that the comments that I get back from people are, "You're just like you are online." And the other apparently is that I look better than my pictures, so I kind of feel like I need to improve my photo skills. But yeah, and to me that's what's more important than just being so connected and disconnected. Connected to media and information, but disconnected to the people who want access to that information.
So, but on Growlr, if people wanted to find you, the best way to look is under galleries most followed.
I don't know if I'm most followed. My blog is not that popular. I think everyone else around me, everyone else on Growlr has a more popular blog.
I still think you're in the.
I'm probably in most
looking.
blogs. You can also do a search in Boston and just type in REN, and I'll probably pop
Yeah, you
up.
got to have 3 letters to search.
Yeah, I have the minimum number of letters. So if they do a search on Boston and type in REN for username, they'll find me.
Okay. Yeah, oh, you have to be a pro member, and you're really near the bottom of most followed. Wow.
Yeah, no, I don't have a lot of followers. I think I have maybe 300 and something. I don't follow how many followers I have. I just usually notice, like, oh, there's someone new who liked a picture. Who is this person? And I usually try to unlock, and sometimes we initiate a conversation. Sometimes it's just a photo exchange. But yeah, the Growlr blog has been really fun, and I, in fact, it's evolved a lot since I started it more than a year ago. When it first came out as a feature in Growlr, I started
As a feature, yeah.
and that, yeah, and it's not what it was when it started. So people who've been following since the beginning, they know this. It used to be a lot more. I don't want to use the word revealing because I feel like that's undermining some other way I've used revealing, but it was very kind of upfront, um, upfront in terms of like there was dick and ass and fluids, and it just wasn't really what I wanted after a while. I kind of just lost interest in it, and then it really has evolved more into these moments, these windows into what I'm doing in the day and how I'm thinking.
You really
And
do this intimate thing with your teddy bear, Cubby, that where you dress him up and you pose him and you give him captions and things to say. That is just it's really charming when if you're following the blog long enough to see things that are going on. So that's a really I think that's a really nice element that nobody else is doing.
well, it's one of those things where the teddy bear has actually come into a lot of my work, and it was a relationship that I didn't really understand. He was a gift from someone who I'd started dating, and I use the word dating very lightly, from Dallas, and so we were in this sort of long-term. I was flying to Dallas every few weeks, and then he came up to Boston, and we went down to New York together, and it it was a great relationship. There was talk about me moving to Texas. I got into grad school, and it just kind of fell apart very quickly. And he'd given me this teddy bear as a sort of gift for having brought him up to Boston and New York, and it was really sweet. But the thing I thought that was really strange about the gift wasn't so much that it was the teddy bear, is that the teddy bear looked like me. I'm like, wow, why did you give me a gift that looked like me? Shouldn't it have looked a little more like you? And then it really ended up being that this teddy bear kind of took on parts of my personality, and through it, I was able to express things that I don't think I would have had the sort of, I don't want to say confidence, but the sort of wherewithal to say. Yeah, I'm a really shy person. And
Yeah,
I've had
because Cubby reveals things about you that you wouldn't necessarily just put out
yeah, he
there.
kind of just does what he wants to, and I mean, I
Right.
fully recognize he's a teddy bear, and I'm not trying to assign him a personality that isn't really part of me, but it's a real joy in a way that it's able to bring me back to a place where it's okay to play with things. As an artist, it's actually quite important that you're willing to let go of the sort of preconceived notions of what you think is right or wrong. And in a way, this relationship with this object is facilitating that for me. And one of the reasons why I ended up doing a lot of work with teddy bears in my own explorations was to get to what does it mean when you say you're a bear, but in fact, that's the way I used to identify, and I don't have the appearance of a bear. I've actually had people literally tell me you're not a bear. And so, I mean, what does that mean? What do we give to belong to things? And what does that say about ourselves? I mean, I think if I were to treat Teddy or Cubby as something that wasn't so meaningful to me, it would be really obvious to people that he was a prop or that he was something that was a gimmick. And I hope at least that if you've been following the blog, you can see that there is a real investment in this object, and it's not just a gimmick.
I like the way you've made clothes and things for him, and they've incorporated into your artwork, the other artwork pieces you've
It's
shown in
really
the blog.
hysterical. I love it. Oh, it's awesome. I want to make more clothes. You don't even know. I'm so excited for that.
Now, did he
One of
come
the
with the
projects.
glasses, or is that your spare glasses or something?
He's worn my glasses. I can't wear his. They're too small. But one
Okay.
of the projects I have outlined right now that will probably get realized in the spring or in the summer of this coming year is to take his clothing and outsize them for my body. So
Oh,
really thinking about what is the relationship give and take between person to object, object to person. What are the distortions that happen in that translation? What are we favoring in the aesthetics of this object that when we bring it back into the real world, and in quotations, the real world, does that still hold
interesting.
true?
Wow. Okay.
It's kind of heady.
Yeah, yeah. That is very interesting. So is there anything else you want to say about your artwork, the blog, the Growler blog, or the Duke blog?
Um, I don't know. I mean, like, what do you think of the Growler blog? You've been following it now for almost a year, and I mean, you're the
I
interviewer, but I think you have a perspective.
Well, I found it very entertaining and educational in some ways. I mean, you've introduced several ideas and things that I wasn't very familiar with, and you've been very upfront about certain things. And then just all of the artwork and the jewelry making, you've spent, so many posts describing how you made that pin and some of the other things you've made along the way that whether you felt like they worked as art or not, you've spent a lot of time posting about them, and that's been very enlightening to me as a follower.
Cool. Yeah, I think for me, the nice thing about the Growler blog is I don't feel like I have to filter it. I just put it out there, and I recognize that some people are going to understand it and want to know more, and some people are not, and that's okay. I think the difference between, and if anyone's following the Duke blog, is that the Duke blog is more, I think, is a lot more refined, and it also there's a very different tone about that work. It's
You use a
conceived,
lot of poetry.
yeah,
It's more serious.
yeah, it requires a lot more. I don't want to say thought because there are a lot. I do think about the stuff I put into Growler, but there's a lot of consideration for the words that are being used, the images that are being, the work that's being expressed through images, and how all of those things sort of begin to triangulate a subjectivity that isn't me but is me. That's kind of like I'm still making sense of this as I'm working through it, and one of the curious things is that I've never had a problem blogging with Growler, except when I get these like when I go into a mood and I just don't want to do anything. On the Duke blog, it's actually getting more and more difficult to do the posts because once you've said it, whatever it is you've said, you really can't repeat it again.
Right.
And with Growler on the blogging feature, everything dies after 7 days. So
Yeah. So
if
you can
people
recycle.
remember it, you can always say it again, and it's fine.
Right.
Can't really do it with this platform because it is about it being retained and accessible even after the blog has
Okay.
been posted.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's also kind of intimidating. I'm like, oh, I've got to write something.
Well, it's only 31 days worth, right?
Yeah, I'm fast reaching the halfway point. So I
Right.
know I'm heading out to New York later in the month, and so I hope that makes it into Duke's blog. It'll definitely be in Growler. I love to let people know where I am, and I've had a great opportunity to meet some of the followers in New York, as well as when I went to IML and Bear Pride and P-Town and all those places, and even San Francisco. So.
Very good. All right, I'm gonna wrap this up, and well, thanks for joining me today on this half-assed Daily Decembear, and being my inaugural bear. And I will talk to you again soon. And if you've been watching, thank you. And if you like what you're seeing here, hit subscribe or hit the thumbs up, and we will have another Daily Decembear for you tomorrow. Thanks.